What's up guys, my name is Liam. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Fnatic Focus3 Max. This is a new proper control mouse pad. It's got some unique features, having a thick base and even a heat treated cloth surface. So is this going to be the perfect gaming mouse pad for you? Let's check it out. Before we get started, I did want to let you know this was actually sent out to me by Fnatic. However, everything you're going to be seeing in this video is going to be my own words and my own opinions. This did arrive to my front door packaged in this tube style packaging. So it is rolled up. When I did first lay it out on my desk, it did kind of have curled up edges, but it didn't take very long, maybe a few hours before it completely flattened out. And currently I don't have any issues with it being curled up on the edges. It is laying perfectly flat on my desk. This will be coming in two different sizes. They have a large and an extra large. The large is 480 millimeters by width by 400 millimeters in height. I do have the XL version here. This one sits at 480 millimeters in width by 480 millimeters in height, and they're both sitting at 6 millimeters in thickness. It is featuring an authentic pour-on base, and it does have kind of this diamond cut pattern on the bottom of it. It does feel pretty smooth for the most part. I don't usually have problems with mouse pads sticking to my desks, but I did kind of find this to perform kind of similarly to the artisan pads, where if I needed to make any type of adjustments on my desk, it was pretty easy to move around. So just something to take into consideration. You can always wet the base of this if you're having problems of it sticking to your desk. The stitching on here was done very well. In fact, this is probably some of the best stitching that I've seen yet on one of these thicker set mouse pads, especially coming in at 6 millimeters. It does sit pretty far below the surface itself, and it is very small. So even though this is a thicker pad, I never once noticed the stitching being an issue or touching it anytime while I was using it. They do have their logo down here in the bottom right hand side, and they do also have some lettering up here. It says Focus3 Max. This is slightly raised off the surface, so if you were to come in either one of these corners, you can actually feel this on the bottom of your mouse skates. I was actually really curious to see how the surface was going to perform once I did see that it is heat treated. Had I not read that it was heat treated, I probably would have never have guessed. I would have imagined that if it was being heat treated, it probably would have made it feel firmer or something like that. That's just what I would have guessed, but that's actually not the case at all. This actually does feel really soft, and it even feels really smooth all the way across. When you rub your finger up and down the X and the Y axis, you almost feel little to no texture on the X axis. You feel a very minor slight bit of texture on the Y axis, but usually with these cloth style control pads, I was actually testing it out with one of my sleeves. The Artisan FX0 is very well known for sticking to sleeves. I found myself that I was able to use the sleeve across the surface just fine. So as I was using this the entire time, rubbing my forearm across it, you don't notice any type of abrasive texture, so it is really smooth to the touch on your skin. And with that smooth feeling, it really does come across with incredible performance for a control pad. Now, this is without question a proper control pad, but with that being said, I don't feel like it's too muddy or you're getting any type of stickiness down here in the micro adjustments. It's actually very smooth, and you can make almost effortless micro adjustments to it. And then the glide across the surface, it does have a very even and smooth glide, but you do notice a bit of the dynamic friction there. So the entire time that I was using this, I really do feel like it has an incredibly great sense of control, and it does feel a little bit on the slower end, but again, without having any of those muddy properties. So I really do feel like they've done something really great with the surface. And the properties while using this is kind of standard with any type of traditional cloth style pad. As far as your skates go, if you do have larger set skates, then you do actually have a little bit of a slower glide. It does give you a little bit more of the static and the dynamic friction. And if you have these dot skates or smaller skates, you do get overall a little bit of a quicker glide. Same thing with softer skates. If you're using softer skates, it does make it feel a little bit more slower and controlled. And the more harsher skates do kind of speed up and give it a quicker glide. So when I was using something like the Final Mouse ULX on this, it did overall have a bit of a quicker glide. And with the overall properties of this 6 millimeter base, it is a little bit more on the firmer side. I was going back and forth A and B testing this with the Artisan FX0 X Soft in the Dye Orange colorway. I'll go and drop the speed test here between both of them. The Artisan FX0 is actually quite a bit quicker than the surface itself, but I do feel like the base, the 4 millimeter pour-on, it does feel a little bit more soft on that one, where on this one, it does feel just a little bit more firm. Now, don't get me wrong, this still is 6 millimeters in thickness. I was playing a lot using the Lamzu Fnatic collaboration Thorn, and I didn't notice too many issues with it sinking in as I was gaming with it and playing. If you were to push in pretty aggressively and pretty hard, then you do kind of get that sinking feeling, and you can scratch the bottom of the mouse. I was testing it out with the Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition. Now, I do actually have aftermarket skates on here, and these have made a bit of a difference performance compared to the stock skates as far as scratching the bottom of my mouse. I was able to game fine with the Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition. I do feel like you can push in this a pretty fair amount without scratching, but if you were to get really hard and push into it, then you can absolutely still scratch the bottom. So when comparing the Focus Max 3 to the Tang Dao, this one also does have a 6mm polyurethane foam base. I was kind of going back and forth testing these out. The difference between both of these is, just to keep in mind, if you haven't watched my masterclass on the Tang Dao, the performance and speed of these is literally right in line with the Saturn Pro. I do kind of find that this polyurethane foam to be a little bit more plush and a little bit more syncy than the feeling of this Pour-On. This Pour-On does feel a little bit stiffer overall, but the properties between both of these, they don't really perform that different from one another, but clearly on the Focus 3 Max, you do notice a little bit more of the dynamic friction there. I do kind of feel like both of these, the surface on the Tang Dao, it feels a little bit more stiff, where this one does feel just slightly a little bit more soft, but I do feel like both of these have very minimal on the static friction. You might just get a slight bit more over here on the Focus 3 Max, but as you're gliding across the surface, the glide does feel more controlled over here on the Focus 3 Max, as it feels a bit quicker on the Tang Dao itself. So let's go ahead and drop a speed glide comparison between both of them. All right guys, so that about wraps things up on the Fnatic Focus 3 Max. I must say that I really do feel like Fnatic has done just an incredible job with this mouse pad. I really am enjoying the performance of it. I love the surface a lot. I think everything about it feels great. I love the size of it. The only thing that I'd recommend to them in the future to kind of switch it up is if they were to come out with different versions of this, I would leave everything the exact same. But I do think it would be a good idea for them to come out with different thicknesses of the base. I think it'd be cool to see maybe like a 3mm thickness, a 4mm thickness. Another thing to note is, since this surface is heat treated, it's supposed to do really well against humidity. It's supposed to be resistant to sweat or any type of spills on the surface itself. So if you are interested in checking this out, I would say it looks great, it feels great, it performs great, and I truly have been really enjoying it. All right guys, so if you have any questions or feel like I left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed watching this video and are interested to see more videos like this in the future, please drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.